Thank you all very much for joining the E2Tech Council today for our final event of this calendar year. I believe this is event number 32 or 33 that we had during this quite full year. And conversation today is thinking a little bit about the year in review, going backwards, and also thinking about what's going forward for the future year. Not just for the Tech Council, but also perhaps thinking about the state of Maine and also the many member companies that are involved in the organization, and as well as individuals and professionals. Again, my name's Eric Howard. I'm the Executive Director of the Tech Council, and we're joined today with Elizabeth Bielowski, who's our program manager. I know there were two board members, current or future, who were signed up, and I'm not sure if they're on yet. And then we have 15 or 20 others who may be joining. I think you already know about the Tech Council because you're here today and you're on our mailing list and you're involved. But again, just a brief reminder, we've got hundreds of member companies, thousands of people are part of our community, and we have lots of partner organizations. During this calendar year, we did a bunch of professional networking events. Here are some of the images from the marketing campaigns for a couple of them. The young professionals gathering up in Brunswick in the spring, our summer social, which was in Freeport. And then this year, instead of having our winter party and annual meeting in December, when everyone else is trying to have their winter party and socials, we're actually doing it in January, just to give people an opportunity to get together in January. It's being hosted by Pretty Flaherty. There was just a nice article in Maine Biz about the renovation of their top floor at One City Center. And so you'll have a chance to see that new space when we gather in January. When we had our last winter social, I thought it could be fun to have a little silent auction for people to share things before Christmas in case they needed to find a quick Christmas present. This year, it's going to be after Christmas and Hanukkah and the holidays. And so if you get some ugly sweater that you want to get rid of, please consider bringing it to the silent auction and you can get rid of it there. So that's one of the things that we try to have some fun, reuse, recycle, and reduce waste. So maybe we can use that as one of our goals for the winter social in January. Many of our programs we do together with partner organizations, typically nonprofits. We did a program again in the spring with the Maine Forest Products Council that worked very nicely. That was up in Freeport. The Maine Outdoor Film Festival is every year in July in Portland, and we helped promote the film festival and had a little networking gathering at one of their showings. And then just last month, we started off something which I hope will be a ongoing program, perhaps once every academic semester, with the University of Maine School of Law on 4th Street in Portland. This was done also with the Maine Association of Wetland Scientists, and it focused on wetlands. We are thinking about the one for the spring, and the likely topic for the spring one at the law school is going to be on agriculture and land use and regional planning. There are a lot of interesting things happening in Augusta and elsewhere around the state on that topic, and so it's sort of the idea is to bring people together to talk about regulations and law and how it impacts business development and environmental protection or energy. Our events, as you know, some of them are online, 100% like this one. We also have some events that are hybrid or 100% in person. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, we did more than 30 events in this calendar year. Again, here are a couple of them just as a reminder on brownfields, on municipal energy, and on electric boats. That was a fun one. Sadly, the electric boat one, it was pouring rain. And so instead of going out on the Saco River, we spent the whole time in the building at the boatyard in Biddeford. Maybe we'll find another opportunity to get folks out on the water. And the brownfields one was interesting because Tom Eschner, who chairs our board and is in the process of retiring from TRC, said that one of his very first jobs at the beginning of his career was working on the brownfields analysis up there in Lewiston to figure out what sort of toxic waste was buried underground at the Bates Mill. And so it was fun for him to return to that site more than 30 years later to see how it had evolved and changed over time. Again, as the Environment and Energy Tech Council, we do some programs about energy and environment ranges everything from brownfields to environmental protection and land use planning, as well as regional planning, transportation planning. I'm now going to pass it over to Elizabeth to talk about a new program that began this year.
Yeah, and for those who haven't met me before, I know Eric introduced me, but my name is Elizabeth, and I'm the Program and Operations Manager with E2Tech, and I started in October of this year. And one of our big projects that we have going on with our programming and events is funded by the Governor's Energy Office in partnership with the Rue Institute at Northeastern University. And that program is over 18 months. And we generally have about 2 programs for that a month, usually one virtual and one in person or hybrid, and covering topics that are always surrounded with climate incubation, but also explicitly about entrepreneurship and connecting with startups and some of our local partners. So pretty much all of our ideas for these types of programs has come from our members and what a lot of the people that we're already connected with are working on in Maine. One of the ones that we just did was a showcase of Canadian startups on climate technology in partnership with WSP and the Canadian Consulate. And that we got a really big turnout for that too, which was really great networking opportunity and being able to meet other people who are working on overlapping climate incubation projects across the state. And Eric, I know you wanted to add on a little bit here too.
Sure. Because this is a new program, we're being entrepreneurial and trying a bunch of different things to find out which ones of them are effective in terms of supporting business incubation and sharing of knowledge within the community. One of the programs that I particularly enjoyed is there on the lower left. That was a program with Jeff Kimmel and Kay Aiken. And for that one, we followed the model of a NPR, National Public Radio podcast called How I Built This. And so we had a bunch of questions really focused on how did they, as entrepreneurs, build their particular company? What was motivating factors for doing certain things? And those kinds of questions also arise in the other ones, but like the one we did with Patrick Cunningham of Blue Marble Geographics up in Hallowell. But again, the focus is less on the technologies and more on how do we create an entrepreneurial economy here in Maine that promotes environment, energy, and because this is funded by the Governor's Energy Office, thinking about decarbonization is a big part of the work. I'm going to pass it back to Elizabeth here to chat about.
Yeah. One of our other big buckets of work is that every week we collect data for the governor's energy office on fossil fuel related pricing. And then we utilize that data that is public on the Maine state's website for other organizations and for the governor's energy office to also determine subsidies for low income energy usage and specifically on fossil fuel or other related energy.
And so the table that you see there is actually a screenshot that I took this morning from the governor's energy office. And so it's there for the whole world to see. And if you go to the governor's energy office or the federal energy information administration website, EIA, they have the whole sequence going back more than a decade. And you can see how the prices for heating oil, kerosene, and propane have changed over the last decade plus, with some big spikes around COVID, impacting certain kinds of energy, and other energy was actually less impacted by the COVID epidemic. And what I have also found interesting when looking at the data here is sometimes there's a lot more variation within the state in a particular week than there is even over an entire year across the state. And so like the propane pricing is significantly less expensive up in northern Maine and in down east Maine. And I think that has to do with some of that propane is getting imported from Canada, and the logistics of getting it there is different than getting propane to, say, the northwest corner of Maine. Another project that we have is the Remain internship program. And this has been about looking at ways to help early career people understand the jobs that are available in our sector, and helping some of the main employers find early career people to work for them. It started back in 2023, and we obviously just finishing 2024. And next week, or actually really in early January, we'll be looking for employers around the state to be signing up to hire a couple of early career folks who get subsidized. The state covers half of the salary for these entry-level people for a period of time, and also covers all of the administrative work. And so at the end of the month or two or three, the employer doesn't have to deal with 990, excuse me, not 990, what are they called? The forms that you have to fill out for the federal government to report on W-2 forms, that's what they are. The W-2 forms and all that administrative hassle for bringing on new employees. So that's another project that we're working on. Because it's the end of the year, we're thinking about next year. We've got about 10 events already scheduled for the first quarter of the year, which if it continues in that order, again, we'll have 35, 40 events over the course of 2025, which is again on par with what we've been doing in the past. Many of our events, again, are grassroots organized, where a member comes to us and says, you know, I have this great idea. I have this topic. I have this client that would like to give a presentation, and then we work together on it. Or sometimes people say, I'm trying to understand what's going on here. Please put together a program on that topic. Or as you saw in the images earlier, the Supreme Court changes the definition of what's a wetland, and so we do a program on what's going on with the Supreme Court. Or right now, the state is doing a bunch of planning on energy policy and utility planning. And so we will be doing some programs over the course of the winter and the spring on those kinds of events and topics as well. And then, because it's the end of the year, I was curious to see, okay, how's our money look? And so I just pulled this out of QuickBooks again this morning, comparing calendar year. E2Tech follows actually a fiscal year that goes from July to June. But whether the money, you could also look at it by calendar year. And so I pulled this up to see what it is. I'm fairly certain that we will break the $200,000 mark. Today is the 18th, and there's a little more money that's in the pipeline. And so it'll be nice to break 200,000 for the first time since the beginning of COVID. My last slide here before we get into some conversation is to remind folks that our programs are sponsored by some of the entities that you see on the screen: Eaton Peabody, Maine Biz, the Northeast University Climate Tech Incubator, TRC, the Maine Technology Institute, and Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnerships. We're always looking for sponsors, annual sponsors who get recognized at all of the events. Obviously pay a little more than the sponsors for a particular event. Sponsorships for one event is usually $250 or $500. So that is my story. And now I can see you all because I turned off the stop share. And if you want to turn on your video so we can see you, that's great. Any questions, comments, concerns, ideas? What's your big project for January, February, March? Anybody? Should I call out someone?
I can, I'm installing heat pumps and would love to hear from anyone who has sort of deep knowledge on the tax implications, the efficiency main state rebates and any, local programs, but especially the IRA, whether it's here to stay, whether you need to rush to get your, to take action before it potentially disappears. And just someone to kind of walk through all the various things that are available in the IRA for, people in Maine.
Does anybody here have some information for Alex, or should I connect him with someone else? No? Kelly, could you tell us a little bit about your very, very busy schedule?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good.
And say who you are.
I'm Kelly Fowler, and I'm Municipal and Community Service Executive for Unitil. Unitil, we're actually in the process of completing a merger with Bangor Gas, Bangor Natural Gas. So that will, I'm sure after the first quarter, when that finalizes, that will probably tax our resources statewide, or lot larger into the state for sure. We just completed a replacement of all of our old cast iron pipes throughout the city of Portland. We had completed it probably 15, 20 years ago in Lewiston, Auburn area, and Westbrook in probably about 10 years ago, and finalized the last segment in Portland. So that really puts Maine as the only state in the union with the most sophisticated and high-tech natural gas distribution system in the country. With our Unitil being the oldest gas utility, we had the oldest pipe, and all of the other utilities that have come to fruition, Maine Natural, Bay State, Bangor Gas, and Summit, their facilities are all, high density polyethylene, and so their infrastructure was already there. So that has enabled us to minimize the amount of greenhouse gases or methane that's being being lost through some of that old pipe that had been there since the early 1900s, some of it. So that's been kind of our big thing this year, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of more things on the horizon for next.
Great. Jeff or Matt, do you have something going on that you want to share?
I liked, Alexander, your point about the IRA. I think, that's going to be a big focus of ours and many of our clients as we head into next year. What does the Trump administration mean for local and national energy policy? And, what does that do to potential incentives or programs that folks had been looking at? I think that might be a good thing to ruminate on for 2025. A lot of folks at E2Tech events impacted. I think beyond that, next year looks like, we're economically also going to maybe more indirect impacts from the Trump administration, looking at some potential interesting economic scenarios with tariffs and looking at what that might mean for the energy sector. I think that might be another potential topic.
Yep. In terms of the changes in Washington, I think another interesting thing will be what's going to happen with offshore wind.
Yeah, definitely.
And nobody's really quite sure what will happen there. If there are grants and subsidies available for offshore wind or not, that will have an impact on what research gets done and what gets built. So we did see that when they did the most recent lease for offshore sites, the price that the wind industry was willing to pay for offshore wind leases was significantly lower than it had been in prior years. So, and I think some of them were concerned about exactly what was going to happen in Washington come January, and so they weren't willing to spend as much money to get a lease if they didn't know whether it was actually going to happen. So two other people have their cameras on, Jacob and Michelle. Any thoughts you want to share with us?
Happy about the recent movement from the Biden administration on natural gas or liquefied natural gas, and doing what he can at the end of his administration, to set us up for hopefully a more renewable, sustainable energy future.
Yeah. So I know Revision has had very large growth in terms of your employee numbers in the last 2 years. And the Secretary of Energy visited your facility, your office is there next to the airport earlier this year. Any thoughts in terms of what next year might look like that you can share publicly?
I think it's going to be a little bit rocky, right? There's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unknowns in terms of what's going to happen with the IRA.
Yep.
We are presuming that 2025 tax credits are probably going to remain as is. Might be some uncertainty in 2026, but that's a good reason for customers, solar, anything in the IRA to lock in, sooner rather than later.
Um, Others wish to have a comment or question? Or do you want me to ask some other targeted questions for the broader community here?
Yeah, I can jump in real quick, just following on
Jeff, please
a little.
introduce yourself again.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jeff Bates. I work at IDEX Water, but I'm also on the Yarmouth Community, or excuse me, Yarmouth Climate Action. I should probably know the name of it. Yarmouth Climate Action Board, which is implementing a climate action plan that got accepted, I believe, back in March. And one of the things we've talked about, and I think I believe it's York has a really good program, is sort of just an energy advisor program for households. So I'm thinking potentially it's a little bit, it's I think of E2Tech as a little bit more B2B than advising consumers on how to electrify their homes and that type of thing. But that is, certainly obviously something that Revision does, and probably something that a lot of E2Tech members are doing is, just how to make sense of, hey, I'm thinking about installing heat pumps, and is there is there a guidebook I can follow, or I'm thinking about getting an electric car? Is there, are there resources that I can use? And obviously Efficiency Maine is a big player there, but or is a big source of information, but it is not easy to do, and definitely there's a opportunity there to simplify and work with others to make it a more straightforward task.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. I will point out that E2Tech, we are a nonprofit organization. We have a board of directors, and the board changes a little bit at the end of the calendar year. We have a couple of members who are going off the board, and we have 5 new members who will be joining the board in January, and they'll all be formally elected at the meeting at Freddie Flaherty in the middle of January. We also have committees, and those committees are always looking for fresh blood, new ideas. One of the committees thinks about membership, and who do we serve and how do we connect to them, and reaching out to either people who aren't members, or reaching out to entities that are members, and helping convince them that they should remain involved, and share registration information with their colleagues. Because if there's a company that has 50 employees but only 3 people on our mailing list, then maybe some of the other 47 people aren't coming to our events because they don't actually even know whatever happens. And then we have a programs committee that meets also once a month, like the membership committee. And the programs committee works with Elizabeth and me to think through, okay, what kinds of things, what topics should we be preparing? Do we want to do something on the IRA, or are there enough other entities that are talking about the IRA that we can leave those entities to cover that topic, and we'll find some other unique ones that are not being addressed by other members of the community. Just like the private sector, where there's competition, there's also a little competition or cooperation going on in the nonprofit sector. And so there are topics that we don't address because some other group is doing a great job already putting together programs relating to that topic. And so if somebody else is already covering that topic, we don't need to compete with them. Sometimes we will partner with them and figure out other ways to share knowledge within the community to help support environment, energy, economic development, professional development. When entities are joining E2Tech, some of them are joining using money that comes from the Human Resources Office, because they see involvement in E2Tech as a human resources topic. whether it be for continuing professional development of their employees or marketing to find new employees. Elizabeth's predecessor went to work for one of our member companies, and Jackie's predecessor went to work for one of our companies, and so my predecessor went to work for one of our companies. So all three of them are out there, and long-term members may remember Melissa Winnie, who now works at ISO New England, and ISO New England just joined as one of our newest members in this circulation of brain knowledge. Brings ambassadors for us at other organizations who then join. So, but again, going back, we're always looking for people who would like to be involved, whether it be just helping put together one program, or helping think through 30 programs, or helping think through how to better serve the architecture community, the construction community, the land use policy community, and these other entities. Because E2Tech's been around for 22, soon to be 23 years, we cover many different domains. So that's what I'm thinking about today. Do you see something interesting on the agenda broadly in terms of politics or environment that we should be thinking about for the next 2 or 3 years? There's been a lot of conversation about PFAS, for example. But is there some other topic that you're saying, somebody needs to be thinking about this, and maybe E2Tech can take it on because no one else is? Any ideas there? No? Okay.
I actually have one, especially now that we have ISO New England as one of our members. This kind of came up for me in the wetlands event that we did, and just because I also moved here from New Hampshire, is just the idea that we share an ecosystem with a lot of the states in New England, but we all have pretty different policies around environmental regulations for a shared ecosystem. So I'm just kind of interested in a topic of how these different policies are integrating with each other. And I think that probably does also connect with how that might be impacted by a new presidency as well.
Great, thank you. Yeah. And then we also share our border with 3 Canadian provinces, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, with the maritime border there. So interesting things also, not just Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, but also the transboundary stuff with Canada.
ISO New England also just wrapped up or is concluding a economic planning for the clean energy transition study that, I don't know, has some pretty interesting outcomes. I think there are maybe a few other venues where those outcomes are being shared, but there's a lot of focus right now on the ISOs and RTOs around the country trying to adapt to a grid with growing electrification demands from big data centers and from electrification efforts like heat pumps and EVs. And there may be something there with sort of the position that ISO has as our regional grid operator and what they're thinking about as part of the transition, maybe for a variety of audiences.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah. One of the other interesting things going on is the ongoing opportunity for people to work remotely. And there are a lot now of people living in Maine who work for companies that aren't actually even based in Maine. And they may be working in their home every day. And one of my goals with E2Tech is figuring out how can we do a better job connecting with those people and bringing them into our community so that they feel that they're part of the Maine economy and aren't just constantly mentally connected to whatever national or multinational corporation they happen to be working for. In part because eventually, a couple of years down the line, they may get tired of working remotely and want to actually get a job locally. And so if they are aware of us and involved with us, that transition from I'm working for some company in Chicago to I'm working for a company in Freeport or Augusta or Biddeford or wherever may happen more quickly. And that is the sort of person-to-person relationships that would be quite important in terms of building the workforce. You may have seen that Governor Mills would like to see us doubling the clean tech workforce from 15,000 employees to 30,000 employees by the year 2030. And that means creating essentially 2,000 to 3,000 jobs every year. And while some of those clean energy jobs are on the construction side, so installing heat pumps or doing energy efficiency work, others are in other parts of the environment and energy space as well. So that's what we're thinking about. Okay. Shall we say this has been a wonderful 40-minute conversation and finish our lunch, or do we have some other thoughts you want to share at the end of this informal gathering just before the holidays? Anybody?
Eric, I just want to thank you on your leadership with this organization. This organization has really been helpful for the energy and environmental industry in Maine, and appreciate your support.
Well, thank you very much. We actually have a board meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And so I'll pass on that note to the board. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your work week. We're halfway through lunchtime on Wednesday. And you could always reach out to us through our phone, 207-800-TECH, which is our phone number, or reach out to us at info@e2tech.org. And we're glad to here to help you in whatever way possible. So have a great afternoon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays all.
Hey.